The night was cold as Adama stepped into St. Raphael's hospital. The bright lights made her squint as she held onto her stomach, feeling weak and dizzy. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. She had been sick for days, but today, the pain was worse. She knew she needed help. She walked to the reception desk, where a nurse in blue scrubs sat typing on a computer. The nurse looked up and saw Adama's tired face. "Good evening. Are you all right?" she asked with concern. Adama shook her head. "I don't feel well. I have fever, stomach pain, and I feel dizzy." The nurse nodded and pushed a form toward her. "Fill this out. A doctor will see you soon." Adama picked up the pen, but her hands were shaking. She struggled to write her name and symptoms. Her vision blurred for a moment, and she had to take a deep breath. After filling the form, she returned it to the nurse, who gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Please wait. A nurse will call you soon." Adama sat in the waiting area, hugging herself to keep warm. She looked around. After a few minutes, a nurse walked in. "Adama." She stood up slowly, feeling lightheaded. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. They entered a small hospital room where a bed was pushed against the wall. "Please sit," the nurse said. "The doctor will come soon." Adama sat on the bed, feeling cold. Her head was spinning. She wished she had eaten something before coming. A few moments later, the door opened, then Dr. Maxwell Okachukwu walked in. He was tall and confident, wearing a clean white coat with a stethoscope around his neck. His dark eyes studied her carefully as he stepped closer. He looked like a man who knew his job well. "Good evening, Miss Adama," he said in a smooth voice. "How do you feel?" "Not good, doctor," she whispered. He pulled out a notepad. "Tell me everything." She described her symptoms: fever, nausea, dizziness, then stomach pain. As she spoke, he nodded and wrote notes. "Lie down," he said gently. "Let me check you." Adama lay back as he placed the cold stethoscope on her chest. He listened to her heartbeat, then pressed on her stomach in different places. She winced in pain. "You have an infection," he said finally. "We need to start treatment immediately. You will need an IV drip and antibiotics." Adama sighed in relief. "Thank you, doctor. But how much will this cost?" Dr. Maxwell smiled slightly. "Don't worry about that now. Rest first. We will talk about payment later." A nurse walked in with a tray of medical supplies. She gently inserted the IV needle into Adana's arm. Cool liquid flowed into her veins. Adana exhaled deeply, her body relaxing. "You will feel better soon," the nurse said kindly. Adama felt sleepy. The exhaustion from the past few days caught up with her, and her eyes closed. When she woke up, the room was dark except for the dim light from the hallway. The IV bag beside her was almost empty. The ticking of the wall clock was the only sound. She turned her head and saw Dr. Maxwell sitting beside her bed, watching her. "You're awake," he said with a smile. Adama rubbed her eyes. "How long was I asleep?" "A few hours," he said. "Your fever is lower now. You are responding well to treatment." She sat up slowly. "Thank you, doctor. I feel better now." He nodded but didn't move. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees. "You don't have to pay for your treatment," he said suddenly. Adama frowned. "What do you mean?" Dr. Maxwell exhaled. "I have an alternative arrangement in mind." Something about the way he said it made her heart pound. "I can find a way to pay," she said quickly, trying to sound calm. He smiled again, but this time, it didn't feel like kindness. "You don't have to," he said in a quiet voice. We will talk later. Then, he stood up, adjusted his white coat, and walked out of the room. Adama stared at the door. A cold feeling spread through her chest. Something was wrong. To be continued in part 2. Please subscribe. When part 2 is ready, you will receive notification.